Chapter 25 The Strongest Force. Under the sunset, Chen Chu was walking on the way to school with a shoulder bag on his back. Vehicles passed by the roadside from time to time, and the loudspeakers of the clothes shop selling clothes on the street shouted about big lost sales, with tiers at 50% off, and a passenger plane rushed into the clouds in the sky. These pictures of modern civilization always gave Chen Chu a sense of dissonance, feeling incompatible with the Zenwu style he practiced. Chen Chu couldn't help but sigh. It's such a complicated world. And time flies by so fast, almost a month has passed in a flash. Recalling everything that happened during this period, Chen Chu couldn't help but smile slightly. Compared with the days in his previous life where he commuted to and from get off work on time, lived day by day and was overwhelmed by mortgages and gifts, Chen Chu preferred the present. It's just. Chen Chu's eyes showed a hint of sadness. Fortunately, he still has an older brother, and the compensation for his accidental death is enough for them to support themselves in their old age. Thoughts were floating in his mind. Chen Chu, who was walking, stopped when there was a red light in front of him. There were also some people waiting for the traffic lights around him, including men and women shopping, office workers going home for dinner, and some elderly people walking. Standing in the middle of the crowd, Chen Chu had an inexplicable feeling that they were so fragile. It seems that as long as he touches them with a little force, these ordinary people will be injured. No, it doesn't seem to be the case, but he is indeed very strong now. It was so powerful that he could kill an ordinary person with one punch, but he had this illusion even though he was just starting out in the first level. No wonder schools and officials will formulate strict rules requiring practitioners not to use force to coerce or harm ordinary people, otherwise the punishment will be severe. Compared with ordinary people, cultivators are a completely different species. Of course, while there are strict restrictions on practitioners, there are also some restrictions on ordinary people taking the initiative to provoke and cause trouble. But no matter how restrictive these laws and regulations are, looking at the essence through the appearance, Chen Chu keenly noticed that the power of the Federation seemed to be terrifyingly powerful. You must know that there are more than 2 billion people in this world, and the number of cultivators has increased dramatically in recent years to at least 1 million. In this case, the government can still monitor the world and suppress all practitioners, allowing them to have powerful power without disrupting social stability. Even conflicts between martial arts competitions are rarely heard of. The internet is also very warm. There is very little news about conflicts between practitioners. Instead, there are mostly gossips about ordinary practitioners. It seems that there is a hand deliberately blurring the boundaries between ordinary people and practitioners. It makes those ordinary people feel that although there are practitioners and they are very powerful, they don't seem to be much different from ordinary people, so there is no need to worry and panic too much. Those cultivators will not be superior to ordinary people. Everyone is an equal existence. This information guidance can be seen everywhere on the internet. And how terrifying is the power required to do this? Thinking of this, Chen Chu's heart trembled. Keep a low profile, practice hard, and try not to provoke the officials unless you are so powerful that you are invincible. Chen Chu thought silently in his heart. But speaking of it, he is actually considered an official, or has something to do with the official. Because the school is an extension of the official power. Thoughtfully, Chen Chu returned home. Chen Hu poked his head out of the kitchen and shouted to him, "Brother, I bought the fish for you, cleaned it and put it in the basin." "Okay." A faint smile appeared on Chen Chu's face. During this period of time, due to his cultivation, he came back relatively late, and then Chen Hu took the initiative to take on the responsibility of preparing dinner every day. Chen Chu naturally would not refuse this. As a child, you just need to do more things, otherwise it would be useless to play football all day long. Now we have entered the era of cultivation. Those previous basketball, football and other competitions have ended. Not many people like to watch them, and there is no future. After all, compared to the power of those cultivators, basketball and football are completely children's activities, and almost all of them, including those sports events, are dead. Carrying a basin of fish, Chen Chu came to the room on the second floor. The hexagonal salamander, which has grown to 64 centimeters and is as thick as an arm, is lying lazily on the chair, its tail hanging on the side and swaying slightly. On both sides of the broad and flat head, 3 pairs of red tooth horns 5 centimeters long were raised like wings, and the slightly opened mouth revealed 2 rows of newly grown sharp teeth. Coupled with the bulging muscles on the body, thick limbs, and sharp claws, it looks more powerful than small and medium-sized lizards. Bang! Chen Chu's consciousness sank, and he controlled his clone to jump off the chair, making a heavy sound when it landed. Even though the hexagonal salamander is only over 60 centimeters, it already weighs more than 10 kilograms. It took a few steps to reach the basin filled with fish meat and bite a fish in one bite. The sharp teeth tore the fish flesh apart, and he swallowed it in a few seconds, followed by another one eating it fiercely. And the clone's digestive ability is even more terrifying. Obviously now I eat about 30 kilograms of fish every day, but there is very little excrement, as if 99% of the matter has been digested and converted into biological energy. While controlling the clone to eat, Chen Chu's thoughts were also emanating. I don't know how much this clone evolution will improve me. It was just a palm-sized clone at first, but when it evolved, it improved less than half of his overall attributes in one go. Now the body size of the clone is comparable to some small and medium-sized lizards, and the strength is even more terrifying. In this case, the evolution of the clone should improve him even more. Whether he can close the gap with those geniuses or even surpass them now depends on his clone. The next day, Saturday, Chen Chu still went to school to practice. When he arrived on the third floor, he found that another classmate had arrived earlier. "Good morning, classmate Lu." Chen Chu said hello to the classmate who was warming up. Looking at Chen Chu, Lu Haidao suddenly said, "Chen Chu, do you want to practice?" Regarding this proposal, Chen Chu just paused slightly and nodded in agreement. "Okay." This man is one of the members of Ling's Yu's club. His name is Lu Haidao, and his family is almost the same as his. He is about 1.7 meters tall, a little shorter than the current Chen Chu. He has an ordinary appearance, a dull personality, and works very hard in cultivation. However, the opponent's talent was a little better than his. He established his foundation 4 days earlier than him. He practiced a technique called Ghost Phantom and was good at bursts of speed. In the training area, Chen Chu and Lu Haidao stood 10 meters apart. Excitement gradually appeared on Lu Haiao's face, and he said in a deep voice, "Chen Chu, my skills are good at speed and explosion. Please be careful later. Come on." Chen Chu was unmoved. Whoosh! As soon as the voice fell, Lu Haidao on the opposite side burst out with astonishing speed, appeared on the left side of Chen Chu across 10 meters in the blink of an eye, and his right leg roared across. Bang! Chen Chu raised his arm to block Lu Haiao's kick. When his arm collided with Lu Haiao's calf, a dull sound broke out. The impact of hundreds of kilograms of force made Chen Chu take a step back. With nearly 3 times the physique of an ordinary person, coupled with the blessing of Zhenwu who is known for his speed, Lu Haiao's explosive speed is almost twice that of Chen Chu. And speed equals power, so even if his absolute strength is not as good as Chen Chu, with the blessing of speed, each kick still explodes with a kicking force of nearly 400 kilograms. And very flexible. Bang 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 bang. Surrounding Chen Chu, Lu Haiao's legs brought up after images, and he continued to attack like a violent storm, suppressing him for a while. But it was only suppression. Chen Chu, who majored in Dragon Elephant Kung Fu, was stronger. He used static control to stop the movement of his arms and easily blocked all attacks. At the same time, the tougher skin greatly increased his defense. Even if he blocked Lu Haiao's leg attack with his arms, he would only feel some pain. Suddenly Chen Chu let out a low roar. The sound was like an elephant roaring, and the violent roar shook Lu Haiao's body. At this moment, Chen Chu, who seized the opportunity, stepped forward and made a fist with his right hand. His upper body muscles expanded like an angry giant elephant, and he punched out with violent force. Facing Chen Chu's cannonball-like lunge and punch, Lu Haiao's expression changed slightly, and he crossed his arms before he had time to dodge. Boom! Under the domineering power of the angry elephant's roar, Lu Haidao was knocked back 6 meters by Chen Chu's punch before he stopped. 2 clear soul scratches appeared on the ground. Chapter 26 Mutated Beast. What a powerful force. Lu Haiao's face turned red and he slowly lowered his trembling arms. Chen Chu also exhaled and slowly calmed down the boiling blood in his body. He looked at Lu Haidao a few meters away and said with a smile, "Classmate Lu, you are not bad either." At this time, the elevator door in the distance opened and several classmates walked out. Although today is Saturday, many students have chosen to come to school to practice and work very hard to catch up with the geniuses who have built their foundations in advance. Seeing someone coming, Chen Chu and Lu Haidao lost interest in continuing the fight. The two already roughly knew each other's strength. Overall, the two sides seemed to be equally powerful, but Lu Haidao knew that he actually lost. He established his foundation 4 days earlier than Chen Chu, had practiced Zen longer and had better initial talent. However, he had just fought with Chen Chu for more than 10 moves, but they were almost the same. This result made Lu Haidao become somewhat silent. He silently came to the training area full of obstacles and worked harder to practice his leg skills. Chen Chu, on the other hand, stood there, thinking about the gains from the fight just now while circulating the blood in his arms to slowly reduce the swelling. In terms of strength comparison, using his arms to block his legs would have been at a disadvantage. If his skin hadn't been as tough as cowhide, he would have become more than a little swollen after being forced to take more than a dozen kicks. But Lu Haidao doesn't feel well either, which can be seen from the fact that he can't even lift his arms now. These people are not the only ones who are also making progress during this time. Currently, his physical attribute is 27 points, but his strength attribute has reached 29 points, and his arm strength test is 150 kilograms. When his punch exploded with all his strength, his basic punch power had reached more than 300 kilograms, coupled with the domineering power and doubled power of the dragon elephant kung fu. If an ordinary person faced this punch, not only his arms would be broken, but his ribs and chest would collapse and die. In addition to the competition of speed and strength, this battle also has the characteristics of both sides' techniques. Lu Haiyao's ghostly phantom is sharp and penetrating. The power of dragon elephant kung fu is powerful and domineering, and at the same time it has a certain increase in defense. Of course, Chen Chu's ability to easily block Lu Haiyao's attack was due to his five senses being much sharper than in the past. Although he has not yet entered the realm of the mind's eye, his practice in the past few days has not been in vain. So what if you move fast? Can it be faster than the speed of waving a hand? And if his last punch had changed from a fist to a palm, and the moment he grabbed Lu Haiyao's arms, he thrust with his left fist, it would have seriously injured him even if he couldn't kill him. Chen Chu looked thoughtful in his eyes, summarizing the experience of this battle. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Chen Chu looked a little tired after completing today's practice tasks. After taking a shower in the changing room, he came to the library on the 33rd floor. Following the label, Chen Chu flipped through the pages and took out a compendium of information on the latest mutated beasts of 2055 from the bookshelf. Now that his cultivation progress has slowed down, he plans to enrich his knowledge in the cultivation world and read more information about mutant beasts. In addition, some practitioners' miscellaneous notes are also worth reading. It records some of their cultivation insights, which is of great help to newcomers like Chen Chu. There were also many students reading at this time. For example, Chen Chu saw the long-haired girl sitting by the window. The golden sunlight penetrated the glass and reflected on the white face, which was rosy with three-dimensional facial features and strands of hair hanging down, like a perfect profile. Chen Chu couldn't help but walked over and said, "Fei Luo, are you coming to school today?" The girl looked up and saw a faint smile on her face. She nodded slightly and said, "Well, I've just been here for a while. Are you done practicing today?" "That's almost it. Just go back and practice again in the evening." After saying that, Chen Chu came to sit across from her and asked curiously, "You like to see these very much?" During this time, he often saw Luo Fei reading these Taoist scriptures, and her cultivation seemed to be no longer as hard as before. Luo Fei thought for a while and said softly, "Actually, reading is also a kind of practice for me." "Practice?" Chen Chu paused. Luo Fei stretched out her hand, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and looked at Chen Chu. "Chen Chu, have you ever heard of the saying that Zhenwu has a degree of compatibility?" Chen Chu nodded. "I heard Lao Sha mentioned it." "As long as you've heard of it." A smile appeared on Luo Fei's face. "The technique I practice is quite special. It requires the mind to be in a state of emptiness and selflessness. In this state, practicing can get twice the result with half the effort. I tried many methods during this period, and found that reading these Taoist and Buddhist scriptures helped me and made my mind peaceful." Luo Fei's words made Chen Chu thoughtful, so, in addition to practicing every day, Li Wenwen eats snacks and cakes, and is also looking for a suitable state for her skills. Luo Fei shook her head. "No, she just likes to eat." "Well, it turns out not to be. Li Wenwen is also a member of Lin Xiu's club. Because she and Luo Fei often hang out together, and because of Sha Yui, Chen Chu can be considered acquainted with her." During this time, Chen Chu saw the girl named Li Wenwen either eating or on the way to eat. In less than half a month, her originally cute face had gained a lot of weight. Chen Chu just thought that she was looking for a match like Luo Fei, but he didn't expect that she wasn't. "Isn't she afraid of becoming a fat girl?" At this time, the long-haired girl opposite suddenly said, "By the way, Chen Chu, I heard that you had a competition with Lu Haidao this morning. What was the result? How do you know this?" Chen Chu was a little surprised. "A classmate saw you fighting each other this morning, and it has spread around the class." Li Wenwen told me. So that's it, Chen Chu said modestly, we just had a brief discussion, no winner or loser. There is no difference in victory or defeat, which means Lu Haidao loses? Luo Fei nodded, then chuckled and said, Lu Haidao came to you for discussion, probably because you refused to join the group. He is a loyal supporter of the squad leader. Well, there is another reason. Chen Chu was speechless. He originally thought that the morning's sparring was just a sparring session between two martial arts practitioners, but he didn't expect that there was another reason. Luo Fei analyzed, this time he lost to you, and he probably won't come to trouble you again in the future. I hope you won't take this matter to your heart. Don't worry, I won't care about such a small thing. Chen Chu shook his head. This time he didn't suffer any loss, so he naturally wouldn't care about it. However, he didn't expect that someone would write him down just because of such a trivial matter. Is it really the nature of a young man? Or is it that he, Chen Chu, looks easy to mess with? Next, Chen Chu chatted with Luo Fei for a while, then lowered his head and started reading. Mutated explosive claw bear, mutated from a brown bear, with an average body length of 6 meters, its fur is tough and thick and can withstand small and medium-sized firearms, bullets and grenades, and can be used to attack the brain and heart with a powerful sniper rifle. Mutated wind tiger, mutated from the Siberian tiger, its head and tail are 7 meters long and 3 meters high. Its fur can withstand firearm bullets. It is as fast as the wind. It has a ferocious nature and its weak point is the abdomen. Two-headed king python, a mutation of the king cobra, with a body length of 20 meters and strong scales on the body, which can withstand rockets and grenade bombings. Chapter 27 Ranking. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Chen Chu walked out of school carrying a shoulder bag. However, he did not go home directly, but was going to the flower and bird market. The beetles that the boss ordered for him arrived. While walking on the road, Chen Chu thought about the problem of Zhenwu compatibility that Luo Fei mentioned earlier. According to Luo Fei, all exercises are a change in physical attributes, so the higher the level of the exercises, the greater the change. In this case, if someone's body constitution is innately in line with this direction, not only will the cultivation speed be faster, but the power of the technique will also increase dramatically. For example, a few years ago, there was a student at Nanshan Wugao who was perfectly suited to the low-level skills he practiced. He broke through to the 3rd level of heaven in his 1st grade and was invincible against the upperclassmen at the same level. Even those senior students practicing advanced true martial arts are the same, and their combat power is astonishing. However, the exercises that Luo Fei practiced were rather special and not orthodox. Therefore, the fitness requirements of the exercises were the spiritual realm, not the physical constitution. The beetles you want are here, and in order to avoid the trouble of dying on the road, my friend caught 2 more, so it's a buy 1, get 2 free. In the flower, bird, fish and insect shop, Chen Chu picked up a black beetle from the box. Unlike other beetles that can fly, the ironclad beetle has evolved to fuse the exoskeletons on its back and even its entire body into one in order to pursue defense. Although it is only 2 centimeters long, according to scientific research data, this bug can withstand more than 30,000 times its own weight. After confirming that the bugs were fine, Chen Chu had a smile on his face. Thank you, boss. I'll come back to you next time I want to buy something. Okay, you're welcome to come back anytime. The boss smiled broadly after receiving the money. This kind of bug is very common in Bizhao. Just like ants, it costs nothing at all, so I asked my friends there to send it for cross-border express delivery. Just by making phone calls and receiving express delivery, I can earn a few $100s. Such an easy business makes the boss feel very good. There were some wet sawdust in the box containing the iron beetles. There was no need to worry about them starving to death, so Chen Chu just put them in the drawer after returning home. Next, let's wait for the clone to evolve. As he spoke, Chen Chu looked to the side, where the clone of the hexagonal salamander was lying quietly, looking more and more powerful. On Monday, as soon as Chen Chu went out, he felt something was wrong in the atmosphere. Patrol cars can be seen passing by on the streets from time to time, and law enforcement officers are on duty at some intersections. The cameras at those intersections and electric poles also flash from time to time. What happened? Chen Chu frowned slightly. In the cultural classroom, Chen Chu came to his seat and sat down. Xia Yui in front turned around and came over. Achu, do you know that Infuking from Class 1 has gathered his true power and broken through to the 2nd level? Awesome. Chen Chu marveled. It took 2 days to build the foundation, 1 week to reach the limit of the second heaven, and a few days later, he broke through the second heaven. The exaggerated breakthrough speed made people unable to feel jealous. There is no way, the gap is already so huge that it makes people despair. You must know that most of the freshmen in the whole grade have not yet established their foundation. Chen Chu shook his head and put the news behind him. He took out the textbook from the drawer and prepared to review it. After all, there was a month-end exam on Friday. No matter how he used to be number 1 in Lingshan number 1 middle school, he couldn't fail in all subjects when he first entered high school. And no matter how talented others are, it has nothing to do with him. He just needs to practice honestly. But freshman rankings. In the afternoon training room, Chen Chu was a little confused when he heard the news. What's the best ranking for freshmen who have just started practicing? They are all weak. Are they just watching a bunch of noobs pecking each other? Xia Yui said excitedly. It is said that the government has allocated a lot of resources to cultivate the new generation of practitioners, especially those with outstanding talents to grow faster. This time, not only Nanchen Wugao in our city, but also the first-class colleges and universities next door, Nanhua Wugao, have compiled a freshman ranking. Starting from the 1st of next month, the top 50 will be determined within the same day. Those on the list will receive an additional 5 contribution points every month. 5 contribution points is equivalent to an additional subsidy of 5,000 yuan per person per month. It is indeed considered a vigorous cultivation. After all, there are so many people in one school. Even Chen Chu was a little moved when he heard this. He only received 3 points a month, which was not enough to exchange for a fraction of the normal price of Baxiang essence and blood. If he could use another portion of Boshing's essence and blood to practice, even if he couldn't break through the first level of the technique, he could still save a month of practice time. Chen Chu raised his eyebrows. No, starting from the 1st of next month, wouldn't those who have just established the foundation have no chance? During this period, many freshmen who have been practicing hard for more than half a month have just built their foundations. Now they will compete in a few days, and many of them may not have reached the first level threshold. Don't you think it's a little unfair? Xia Yui patted Chen Chu on the shoulder and said with emotion, Ah Chu, if this world was really fair, there would be no difference between talent and birth. Everything is the same for everyone. This is only fair, but do you think it's possible? After saying this, Xia Yui shrugged. Chen Chu was a little surprised. I didn't expect that Lao Sha could say such philosophical words. That's right, I've always been so philosophical, you just didn't realize it. Xia Yui was a little proud. He is indeed right. There is no fairness in this world. It's just that human beings are social creatures that can think, and they have entered modern civilization. So on the surface society seems to be relatively equal. But it is only on the surface. No matter what era or society, people will always divide themselves into 3, 6 or 9 grades. This is an unchangeable fact. After chatting with Chen Chu for a while, Xia Yui went to practice hard. Not only him, but all the students became very motivated after learning that the school actually had a real freshman ranking instead of the amateur rankings on the official website. Because being on the list is not only about resources, but also about reputation. After all, they are all teenagers who doesn't want to show off to others. Are you ranked among the top 50? Chen Chu thought thoughtfully. According to the information Xia Yui found out, more than 1,900 new students have successfully built their foundations after practicing hard for almost a month. In the 48 classes, there are more than 130 ordinary geniuses who can build a foundation within a week, and more than 200 intermediate qualifications who can build a foundation within half a month. In other words, if Chen Chu wanted to participate in the competition and enter the top 50, he would have to defeat at least 80 geniuses who practiced advanced techniques. This does not include the more than 200 classmates who have been building foundations for half a month. There may be geniuses among them who have accumulated a lot of experience. I wonder how strong those who have practiced advanced techniques are. Chen Chu narrowed his eyes slightly as he spoke. Although he wanted to practice in a low profile and develop slowly. But when opportunities and resources appear in front of you, you still have to fight for it. When the time comes, it should be okay to be among 40 or 50. After all, everyone will only remember the number 1, and no one cares about who is second, let alone him on the tail. And if you don't fight at the beginning of cultivation, when those geniuses get more resources, the gap in strength between the two sides will become wider, and in the end you may not even be able to see their backs. Of course, Chen Chu is just thinking about it now. Unless the second evolution of the clone in 2 days makes his strength significantly breakthrough, there is no need to participate, because even if he participates, he will be at the bottom. Chapter 28 The Upper Limit of the Sixth Heaven. The difference between high-level and low-level exercises. On Tuesday morning, during the break between classes, Chen Chu and Xia Yui were taking a walk in the stairwell. Chen Chu immediately asked about this topic. After deciding to consider participating in the ranking competition, Chen Chu prepared to first understand the basic information of his opponent. For example, what are the differences between high-level and low-level exercises? Chen Chu checked this information online, but strangely he couldn't find it, and it seemed to have been deliberately blocked by the authorities. Xia Yui thought for a while. The first difference is the upper limit. Advanced techniques can be cultivated to the sixth heaven, while low-level techniques can only be cultivated to the third heaven. As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Chu asked doubtfully, advanced skills can only be practiced to the sixth level. I remember that there are not 9 levels in the martial arts realm. Chen Chu always thought that advanced skills could be practiced to the 9th level. Xia Yui shook his head. Of course there are techniques that can be cultivated to the 9th level, but they are top-level secrets. Not only do they require high talent, but they are also very precious. You have to know that there was no cultivation method at all a few decades ago. Everyone was groping alone. Coupled with some other reasons, the whole world was in chaos. Later on, more and more people started walking, and the path became clear. Gradually, the embryonic form of the practice was formed, and then the concepts, realms, and levels were continuously completed. So even though you can only practice the dragon elephant technique to the 3rd level, if it were in the earliest days, it would be enough to break the heads of countless people. And the upper limit of low-level skills is only the 3rd level, but it doesn't mean that you can't break through the 4th level, but you have to deduce the subsequent skills by yourself. That's it. Chen Chu nodded. Xia Yui continued, even now, you can only easily obtain the complete technique in school. It is difficult for you to practice outside. Although there are martial arts gyms in big cities that accept disciples, the fees there are not only ridiculously expensive, but also the inherited techniques are very single, and most of the techniques are low-level. If you go to one of those high-end martial arts schools to learn the advanced skills that I practice, you can't even think about it if you don't have a tuition fee of 100,000 yuan, and it will only teach one level at a time. 100,000 tuition fees can only teach one level, so genius students like you. Chen Chu blinked and suddenly found a way to make a fortune. You must know that there are at least 100 people in the school who have practiced advanced techniques. I know what you are thinking, but I advise you not to think about it. What do you think the agreement you signed is? Xia Yui rolled his eyes. Also, we freshmen can only learn the first 3 levels of advanced skills. Subsequent skills need to be exchanged for contribution points. In addition, each advanced technique has its own characteristics and is easy to identify. Anyone who dares to spread it privately will be easily discovered. When the time comes, if you follow the clues, the consequences will be serious if you are caught, so no one will take risks for this little money. Besides, 100,000 yuan is a legitimate learning fee. It's not that valuable secretly. After all, both the buyer and the seller are very risky. Therefore, rich and powerful people don't need to buy it. They can get it through other formal channels. Those who have no money can't afford it. Having said this, Xia Yui shrugged, and advanced skills are not as important as you think. The real core of the 3 major allies is resource monopoly, top skills, and secret books. Although the whole world has joined the United States of America, due to its autonomy, it is actually more like an alliance of human camps, with a loose internal structure. It is mainly composed of the 3 strongest countries, a dozen medium countries and dozens of small countries. Secret code? Chen Chu's eyes showed doubts. Xia Yui shook his head, don't ask me. I don't know what the secret code is. I just heard my brother mention it. At this time, Xia Yui suddenly said, Ah Chu, I heard that Lu Haidao suffered a loss at your hands a few days ago. How about it? Do you want to see the power of advanced techniques? Sparring with you? Hey, how are you? Are you afraid? After lunch, Chen Chu took a short rest, and then found a classroom with Xia Yui to prepare for the competition. However, a few onlookers came before the competition started. Facing Chen Chu's questioning look, Luo Fei smiled slightly. Xia Yui told us, he asked us to come over and cheer you up, because he was afraid that we would beat you to tears later. Chen Chu was speechless. Did he look that fragile? And it hasn't even started yet, so we don't know who will win and who will lose. Hey, aren't I just taking precautions? Sha Yui on the opposite side chuckled. At this time, the girl with short hair named Li Wenwen clenched her fist and shouted to Chen Chu, "Come on Chen Chu, hit Sha Yui all over his head." Lin Shui crossed her arms next to her, and next to her was Lu Heidao, who had competed with Chen Chu a few days ago. They all seemed very interested in the upcoming battle. Classmates compete, stop at the point, start quickly. The squad leader spoke, and the two people standing 5 meters apart suddenly looked solemn, their bodies sank slightly, and a powerful aura of power filled the air. Sha Yui said in a deep voice, "At you, the technique I practice is called Xuanwu Thick Earth True Jiu. It is famous for its defense and strength. The power of practice comes with backlash, so be careful later." Chen Chu took a deep breath and said in an equally deep voice, "Come on." Sha Yui stepped hard on his feet, like a giant tortoise turning over. The ground shook slightly, and he rushed toward Chen Chu with a heavy momentum, much slower than Lu Heidao. But his momentum was more powerful and domineering, and when he came to Chen Chu, he pushed him directly with both hands. Chen Chu's dragon elephant skill was activated, and all the muscles in his body swelled in an instant, and a violent aura erupted from his body. Not to be outdone, he also faced it with both palms. Bang bang. The two palms collided, and the airflow was squeezed by the powerful force, making a dull explosion. But Chen Chu's face changed slightly immediately, and a strong counterattack force came from the opposite side. He couldn't help but take half a step back. He suddenly became more excited and let out a low drink. "Come again." Roar. Accompanied by the faint roar of an elephant, Chen Chu's muscles even swelled once again, and his muscles and bones connected together with a crisp sound, and an even more violent force erupted. Bang bang. The fists of the two people intersected, and a dull explosion broke out again. Powerful power spread throughout their bodies, shaking the ground beneath them. Continue. Sha Yui also became excited, and the aura on his body became thicker and heavier, like a basalt with spikes constantly attacking. Chen Chu, on the other hand, was like a violent giant elephant. The two of them were wrestling together like two newly born giant beasts, and the training room was filled with the dull sound of heavy objects hitting each other. Under the powerful force, the two men's movements were carried by the roaring wind, and the momentum was astonishing. But Chen Chu soon fell into a disadvantage. Because in terms of overall strength, he is indeed a little weaker than Sha Yui, and this gap comes from all aspects. Dragon Elephant technique majors in strength. When entering and breaking through the first level, the increase against Chen Chu is about doubled, and there is also a certain improvement in defense. As for Sha Yui's Xuanwu Thick Earth art, Chen Chu felt that his power increased by about 1.5 times, and the power of advanced techniques was more concentrated and powerful. In addition, the defense is not weak, and the weird counterattack force knocks back part of Chen Chu's power every time, making him very uncomfortable. In addition, he is also a little weaker than Sha Yui in terms of basic strength, so he is suppressed in all aspects. However, as the two continued to fight, Chen Chu himself became more and more proficient in using the dragon elephant kung fu moves, and many of the skills he didn't understand before became smoother. Coupled with a sharper perception after practicing the mind's eye, he often blocked Sha Yui's attacks in advance and counterattacked at critical moments, leaving him in a hurry, so he barely remained undefeated. At this time, the four Luo Fei people beside them also looked at it very seriously. Think about how to defend yourself against this kind of attack, how to fight back, and sum up your experience. Without the use of weapons, the difference between the new people in the first level is actually not big. It is just because of the characteristics of the skills that some people are stronger and some are faster. Chapter 29 Cultists. Bang! Chen Chu and Sha Yui struck again with all their strength, and there was a dull explosion when their fists met. Both sides were knocked back a few steps by a powerful counterattack force. Stop, no more fighting. Sha Yui, who was sweating profusely, gasped for air and waved his hand to indicate that he would stop fighting. Seeing this, Chen Chu stopped his hand and let out a long breath. At this time, both of them were wet with sweat, their skin was red, and their whole bodies were exuding high temperatures, which was a sign of blood boiling. After calming down the breath in his body, Sha Yui complained, "At you, we are just competing, are you so desperate?" At the beginning, the two of them were still measured and kept their hands strong, but as the fighting atmosphere increased and the blood boiled, Chen Chu's strikes became harder and harder. Faced with this situation, Sha Yui naturally did not hold back, and then the two of them punched each other and kicked each other, and the beating became more and more brutal. Chen Chu touched his slightly red and swollen left cheek and smiled, "Isn't this a match made in chess? On a whim, and I've received more than 10 punches than you, so I'm more at a disadvantage, okay? Can you still count like that?" Look at my face. Xia Yui was angry and pointed at the two swollen eye sockets. Although Chen Chu was punched by him more than 10 times, the problem was that those punches all landed on his back or shoulders, and he was hit on the face, which was much better than him. At this time, not to mention Xia Yui, Luo Fei and others nearby did not expect that they would be beaten so badly. I saw Luo Fei coming to Chen Chu and looking at his cheek with curiosity. Chen Chu, are you in pain? What do you think? Do you want to give it a try? As he said that, Chen Chu's eyes fell on her pure and beautiful face, and he was a little eager to give it a try. With such a beautiful face, you should be crying for a long time after being punched. Luo Fei shook her head quickly. No. Hey, Xia Yui, your arm is swollen. Li Wenwen poked Xia Yui's left arm with her finger. He grinned in pain and quickly avoided it. Don't touch it, it hurts. Lin Shui came over and took out a small bottle. I have a bottle of special medicinal wine here that can quickly reduce swelling and activate blood circulation. You too can take it and rub it. Thank you, Monitor. Xia Yui took the medicine without being polite and went to the changing room with Chen Chu to apply the medicine. After watching the two people leave, Li Wenwen stuck out her tongue. I didn't expect that classmate Chen Chu, who looked so gentle, could be so crazy when fighting. Lu Heidao, who had been silent all the time, nodded. Yes, Xia Yui is so miserable. It was clear that Chen Chu had always been at a disadvantage and had been hit more times, but for some reason, everyone felt that Xia Yui was worse off. At this moment, Lu Heidao suddenly felt lucky that he had chosen to stop in time after being knocked back by a punch a few days ago. Otherwise, he might become like Xia Yui, and I don't know how the people in the class will talk about him. Lin Shui suddenly said, tell me, if I invite Chen Chu to join our club again, will he refuse? Li Wenwen blinked her big eyes and asked curiously, Squad leader, why do you still invite him? The other two people were also a little surprised. We are all teenagers in high school and want to save face. It stands to reason that after Lin Shui was rejected by Chen Chu once, she should not have such thoughts again. Lin Shui said slowly, because he is very courageous and has strong fighting instincts. If he joins our club, he will be a good teammate. Others in front only saw the fierce fight between the two, but she saw more. For example, Chen Chu's fighting style is not afraid of being disadvantaged and even counterattacks more violently even when calm, and his intuition of exchanging injuries for injuries but avoiding vital points in battle. Such people are born warriors and are determined. Luo Fei said softly, I feel like he will still refuse. Okay, pretend I didn't say that. Ah Chu, please be gentle. In the changing room, Chen Chu applied medicine to Xia Yui's shoulder. With a little effort, he made a pig noise, leaving Chen Chu speechless. You grown man, why are you so afraid of pain? Look, I'm not afraid at all. After saying that, Chen Chu wiped the powder on his chest and didn't take it seriously at all. Nonsense, I chose the Xuanwu thick earth true technique because I was afraid of pain. Xia Yui rolled his eyes and don't lie to me. You were much less forceful when you wiped yourself just now, but you were very strong when you wiped it on me. How is it possible? Am I such a person? Chen Chu put down the empty medicine bottle with a smile. After applying the medicine, the two of them moved their bodies again. The blood and energy were indeed much smoother than before, and the swelling on their bodies was quickly dissipating. Chen Chu asked, Lao Xia, what is your arm strength now? Xia Yui, who knew what he wanted to ask, didn't hide anything. 190 kilograms. The first layer of Duanwu thick earth secret formula can condense the fist strength by 1.5 times. Sure enough. Chen Chu nodded. His current arm strength is only over 150 kilograms, and with the gap in his skills, it is natural that he will be completely suppressed by Xia Yui. If you calculate it this way, the other people who have practiced advanced skills are probably about the same strength as Xia Yui. It is a bit difficult to defeat them. Chen Chu was thoughtful. Then exchanging injury for injury is ultimately the last resort. And when the overall attributes are suppressed, as long as the opponent is ruthless enough, it would actually be worse to hurt him in exchange for hurting him. It hurts today, but it's very enjoyable, especially at you. I didn't expect that your strength has improved so much and you actually fought me back and forth. Xia Yui said as he rubbed the corners of his eyes. No, Lao Xia, you are more powerful. Chen Chu commercially boasted to each other. Xia Yui was speechless. If I were better, I wouldn't have been beaten like this by you. Isn't this what you asked me to do? Chen Chu smiled. Do you think I believe it? Xia Yui rolled his eyes. At this time, Chen Chu suddenly asked, Lao Xia, do you know what happened in the past 2 days? I see law enforcement officers everywhere on the street. Yesterday and today, there were all those people on the street. Chen Chu was a little confused about what happened. As for why I asked Xia Yui, of course he was well informed. It's nothing serious. I heard that 2 evil cultists have appeared. We are investigating and tracking them in the past few days. Cultists, those who caused chaos in Kahlua. Chen Chu's expression condensed. Noticing his solemnity, Xia Yui said nonchalantly, "Don't worry, Achu, we are not a small country like Kahlua. Those guys will die as many as they come. Although you don't see many practitioners in society, there are many masters in our city, especially the teachers in our school. But it will be a bit dangerous these days, so try not to run around at night if you have nothing to do." Xia Yui finally reminded him. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Chen Chu waited until the redness and swelling on his face subsided before leaving school. On the way, he took out his mobile phone and searched for news about Kahlua. Then I discovered that half a month had passed and the situation there had become increasingly serious. There are traces of rebels formed by cultivators in almost half of Kahlua. In addition, there are also some evil god believers mixed in. The so-called evil cults are some dangerous elements that have emerged in recent years. They mostly appear in small and backward countries in southern China, often causing chaos. Therefore, every time it appears, it will be quickly wiped out by local official forces. Chapter 30 The Second Evolution. When he got home, Chen, who had already cleaned a bowl of fish. "Brother, the mutant beast you raised eats more than me. It grows bigger and bigger. Will it destroy our family if this continues?" Chen, who was worried. He felt that the recent deterioration of food was probably caused by the mutated beast his brother raised. He used to eat meat every day to be full, but starting from more than half a month ago, although he had meat every day, it felt like it was gone after a few bites, and only vegetables were left on the plate. It was during this time that he was full after cooking for himself, which was one of the reasons why he actively went home to cook every day. Thinking of this, Chen, who suggested for the sake of his belly, "Brother, why don't we eat that mutant beast? I heard that the meat of mutant beasts is very nourishing." Chen Chu glanced at him with a strange look. "This suggestion sounds good. What do you think tastes good?" Chen, whose eyes lit up, thinking there was something going on, and excitedly suggested, "Brother, I think the barbecue flavor and garlic flavor are more fragrant. Of course, spicy food will also work." "Brother, wait a minute, I'm going to get the knife." After saying that, Chen, who ran back to the kitchen excitedly, picked up the kitchen knife and was about to go upstairs to kill the hexagonal salamander. Chen Chu said angrily, "You are still serious, put the knife down." "Ah. Brother, I don't want to eat anymore." Chen, who was a little disappointed. Chen Chu waved his hand, "I know how to eat all day long. This is a mutant beast I raised myself. But your worries are reasonable. This mutant beast's appetite has been increasing recently. I plan to release it in 2 days." "Release them?" Chen, who suddenly felt a pity. "What a waste, that's mutated animal meat." "Okay, don't be sorry." Chen Chu patted him on the shoulder, "You are still young. There are some things you don't understand and you can't grasp. Just listen to me and go cook." "All right." Although he didn't know why his brother wanted to be released, Chen, whose trust since childhood kept him from thinking too much. Ignoring the troubled Chen Chu carried the basin of fish to the second floor. In the room, a hexagonal salamander that had grown to 68 centimeters was lying on the floor. Its figure became more and more powerful, especially the 3 pairs of red feathers spread out on both sides. I don't know if it's because of evolution or because it's grown up, but the hexagonal salamander's eyesight has also improved a lot. Through the salamander's low perspective, Chen Chu could clearly see his appearance and the furniture in the room, but everything was very huge and felt oppressive. After controlling the clone to eat and drink enough, Chen Chu practiced again at night before resting. The next day, there were still law enforcers on the way to class. It seemed that the 2 believers had not been caught yet. Chen Chu thought thoughtfully. As soon as he entered the classroom, he found that it was much livelier than before, and everyone was discussing the ranking competition. A few students who had just established their foundation were complaining that it was unfair. They had only entered the first level a few days ago, while many of their classmates had already been practicing for half a month. In a competition like this, they were far behind in basic physical fitness and proficiency in moves, and there was no hope of standing out. Compared to them who were depressed, those students who had made a breakthrough for half a month were gearing up and a little excited, thinking that this was their chance to become famous on campus. With everyone being at the same level, they felt that if they gave it a try, they might have a chance of reaching the top 50. As for those students who have not yet established a foundation, they can only look at it with envy. I think the squad leader should have no problem finishing in the top 10 this time. You are underestimating the squad leader. I think the top 5 squad leaders have hope. In the battle training yesterday afternoon, the squad leader defeated Zhang Gang and the 3 of them together. Yeah, I also think the squad leader can be in the top 5. Her swordsmanship is so powerful. Lin Shui in the front row was surrounded by many classmates. When she talked about how she defeated 3 classmates by herself yesterday afternoon, they all admired her very much. After the battle between Chen Chu and Xia Yui at noon yesterday, Lin Shui and others also noticed the issue of actual combat experience. So yesterday afternoon, she called all the foundation building students in the class together in the name of Monitor. In order to improve the overall strength of the class and help everyone get a good ranking in the next ranking competition, we are preparing to organize a practical training. Most people had no objections to this proposal, and after practicing for so long, their hands were a little itchy, and they were having a lively ping-pong session all afternoon. I think Yurui can also enter the top 10 this time. He is a genius who can build a foundation in 3 or 4 days just like the squad leader. Yes, Commissioner Yurui is also very strong. Xia Yui was easily defeated by him in the training session yesterday afternoon. He will definitely make the list easily this time. Haha. Everyone praises me too much. My strength is actually average. It was just a fluke that I won yesterday. Besides, we are still just students. Friendship comes first in this competition. It doesn't matter what our ranking is, as long as we learn from each other and make progress. Chen Chu came to his seat and sat down, then looked at Xia Yui in front of him strangely. What's going on? You were beaten by the class committee yesterday. Xia Yui was a little dissatisfied. It wasn't that I was beaten, it was just a spar. And at that time, I was still injured from fighting with you, so I just lost 2 moves because of my carelessness. Really? Chen Chu felt that he was being harsh. After his fight with Xia Yui yesterday, he found a private training room to practice the dragon elephant skill intensively, so he did not go out to participate in training. At this time, Chen Chu asked curiously, Lao Xia, what do you think of the strength of Yurui's squad committee and squad leader? Xia Yui hesitated for a moment. Very strong. I have never sparred with the squad leader, but I feel that I am no match for her. Her sharp and violent swordsmanship can defeat me. As for Yurui, Mama Hu is a little better than me. I understand. Chen Chu nodded slightly. Although Xia Yui was duplicitous, the genius who had broken through the foundation building in these few days was indeed very strong and could suppress his classmates who also practiced advanced techniques in terms of strength. Woo 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 woo. At this time, a low cry came from the front. Xia Yui quickly turned around to comfort him. Yue, it's okay. If you can't practice Zenwu, you can still get admitted to a prestigious university. Look, General Luo Yu has never practiced true martial arts. Now he has become a federal major general at the age of 30. Let me tell you. At this time, it was not just the girl at the front desk of Xia Yui. While the martial arts students were excitedly discussing the ranking competition, those students in the class who had been practicing for almost a month and were still at level 6 or level 7 were feeling a little depressed. Chen Chu sees this in his eyes, but there is nothing he can do about it. The problem of talent will not change just because you are unwilling to do so. And they are actually very lucky. They have the opportunity to systematically learn real martial arts when they go to high school. You must know that in some allied countries, real martial arts and training resources are controlled by high-level officials and ordinary people have no chance to contact them. This is why those small countries have become increasingly chaotic in the past 2 years. After all, not everyone is willing to be at the bottom for life. At 4 o'clock, as the school bell rang, Chen Chu slowly opened his eyes and prepared to go back. After he started practicing Zenwu, this was the first time he left school and went home so early. The reason was simple. The clone could start its second evolution right away. Chapter 31 Heavy Armored Beast. When Chen Chu returned home, Chen who hadn't finished school yet. Throwing his backpack on the sofa, he went to the second floor. In the room, a hexagonal newt that had eaten once in the morning and had grown to 70 centimeters was lying on the ground, looking at Chen Chu quietly with its black bean-like eyes. In anticipation, Chen Chu took out the box from the drawer, opened it, picked one of the 3 ironclad beetles, picked it up and put it into the mouth of the hexagonal newt. Let's start. Boom. As Chen Chu confirmed that the hexagonal salamander, which had already reached the evolutionary requirements, a violent heat wave erupted like a flash flood. That is the evolutionary energy that has been accumulated in the body. Wherever it passes, the cells in the salamander's body divide again crazily, compress, and become more powerful. And deeper inside the clone's body, the originally fixed genetic sequence began to evolve in a more powerful and perfect direction after absorbing the iron beetle. Click, click, click. On the clone's smooth and tough body surface, layers of light black horny bones appeared from scratch, growing out at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, a stream of heat appeared out of thin air in Chen Chu's body. It's just that compared to the weak feeling the first time, the evolutionary energy this time has increased more than 10 times and the strength of muscles and bones increases at a terrifying speed. This kind of strengthening belongs to the whole body. The cells in his body are constantly dividing and compressing like the clone, becoming more explosive, and his internal organs are more powerful. This evolution lasted almost an hour. Call. Chen Chu let out a breath and opened his eyes. The black and white eyes were as bright and energetic as black gems, with a vague sense of invisible oppression. Feeling the surge of power in his body, Chen Chu had a smile on his face, because this improvement exceeded his expectations. In excitement, Chen Chu called up the properties page with a thought. Level, first level. Physique, 58. Strength, 60. Agility, 52. Spirit, 55. Talent, soul splitting. Kung Fu, Lotus Platform Meditation Perfection Dragon Elephant Kung Fu First Level Mind Eyes Bright Sword Techniques First Level, Mind Eye. Split Body, Hexagonal Heavy Armored Beast. Level, Low Level Alien Beast An extraordinary creature that has evolved twice, with an adult body length limit of 3 meters. Talent, Strength Powerful muscle fibers and bones, can explode 100 times your own strength. Defense The body's surface has a special structure, and the outer armor with steel hardness has a defense that is 100 times heavier than its volume. Note, the defense power will be reduced in areas where the outer armor is weak. Evolution value, 0.300. The 4 major attributes have all been increased by 30 points, which is equivalent to strengthening the physique of an ordinary person 3 times. A single attribute has even exceeded the limit of the first level. Chen Chu glanced at the changes in his attributes, and then focused on the clone data below. The clone's name became the Hexagonal Heavy Armored Beast, which had nothing to do with the salamander. It was a low-level alien beast with a maximum growth of 3 meters. But these are not important. What makes Chen Chu's eyes light up is the defensive talent below. Sure enough, just as I thought, I gained another talent this time. Chen Chu had a smile on his face. With a heavy pressure defense that is 100 times the size, plus the talent that can explode 100 times the power as long as you are careful when releasing the clone at this time, there will be no problem in terms of safety. After reading the detailed attribute changes, Chen Chu put away the attribute page and looked at the heavily armored clone on the ground. The body length of the clone at this time is still 70 centimeters, the same length as when it first evolved, but the density and weight have increased several times, and it is thicker laterally. The whole body is covered with a black armor-like exoskeleton, including the abdomen, especially the back, which looks like pieces of armor spliced together. Even the dorsal fin extending from the head to the tail has become blunt and thicker, and the tail, which occupies a smaller part of the body, is also covered by a black ring-shaped armor. Under evolution, the limbs have become stronger and more powerful, and are also wrapped in smaller scales, and the claws are as sharp as small daggers. The originally broad head was also covered by a black exoskeleton, and the eyes even had protruding brow bones to protect them, as if they were wearing a helmet. In addition, the upper and lower jaws evolved to protrude further forward, revealing 2 rows of sharp teeth, and even 4 upper and lower canine teeth grew. The 2 sides of the head spread outwards, and the 3 pairs of feather horns like small wings have completely turned into hard horns, and the color is brighter like blood, which makes the middle look a bit ferocious. At this time, the heavily armored beast clone looked like a ferocious mutant beast. It was hard to imagine that it was originally just a salamander smaller than a palm. At this time, there was the sound of the door opening downstairs. Chen, who saw the backpack on the sofa and shouted upstairs, "Brother, you are back." Chen Chu, who was upstairs, shouted to the people below, "Well, you have to leave early today if you have something to do. You go cook first. I have to go out." "Oh." After dismissing Chen, who casually, Chen Chu rummaged through the closet, found a backpack, and then controlled the heavily armored beast with his consciousness to climb in carefully. Controlling the heavy armored beast to curl up, Chen Chu zipped up the zipper and lifted it up by the strap. He suddenly felt his hand heavy and the strap made an overwhelming sound. Based on the feeling of the hand, Chen Chu estimated that the heavy armored beast would weigh at least more than 80 kilograms, which was astonishingly heavy. However, this little weight is nothing to him whose physique is 5 times more than that of ordinary people. Chen Chu, who carefully held his backpack to avoid being damaged by the heavily armored beast, went out and headed towards the river a few hundred meters away under the sun. According to the normal routine, his behavior of releasing mutant beasts should go out in the middle of the night and be sneaky, so that it fits the atmosphere. Then when I come back at night, I encounter some accidents and other stories happen, such as a hero saving a beauty or something, which is more in line with the routine. With random thoughts in his head, Chen Chu came to the river and followed the embankment to the bottom. Chen Chu looked around and saw that there was no one around. It was fine. He put down his backpack and opened the zipper. With a rustling sound, the black beast followed the weeds and entered the river. Gulu gulu. After spitting out a few bubbles, the heavily armored beast swam out along the bottom of the water. Suddenly another underwater scene appeared in Chen Chu's eyes. From the perspective of the heavily armored beast, the surrounding vision suddenly became blurry. With the help of sunlight, the water area more than 2 meters deep could be seen clearly up to 10 meters away. The algae were swaying here and small fish were swimming around. Suddenly a big fish weighing several kilograms appeared, frightening the small fish to run around. As soon as the fish swam in front of the heavily armored beast, it was bitten by the suddenly exposed heavy armored beast, and it snapped into 2 pieces under the terrifying bite force. Chewing fish meat in his mouth, the heavily armored beast swam along the small river under the control of Chen Chu's consciousness, towards the mainstream river dozens of miles away. Big fish can only be found when the water is deep, and resources are abundant when the river is wide. From today on, it will kill and eat as much as it can. At this moment, the heavy armored beast could feel the excitement of being so high in the sky that birds could fly, and that the sea was so vast that fish could leap. It had been kept in the room for too long. Not only is the space oppressive, there is also insufficient food. If there was enough food, the heavily armored beast clone could evolve at least 10 days in advance, but because Chen Chu was short of money, the night was basically wasted. Chapter 32 I Can Only Help So Much. After the clone entered the river, Chen Chu also turned around and went back, but he seemed a little absent-minded on the way because he was distracted from controlling the heavy armored beasts to swim, including when eating at night. Looking at Chen Chu who was eating and then stopping, Zhang Scalan across from him asked with concern, Chu, are you okay? Ah, no, I'm fine. Chen Chu came back to his senses. Just now, the heavily armored beast encountered a 1-meter-long large herring at the bottom of the river. Chen Chu pounced on it without even thinking and knocked over the larger herring. Although there is a big difference in size, the heavily armored beast just pressed its claws on the herring's back, and the powerful force suppressed the herring and made it unable to move at the bottom of the river. After this evolution, the clone's talent of 100 times the volume of strength was completely released. At this time, the power under one claw exceeded 1,000 kilograms, which was terrifying. This is because the size is only 70 centimeters long, a juvenile body at this stage. When the heavily armored beast grows to 3 meters long and weighs hundreds or even thousands of kilograms, its power will reach a terrifying level for the same size. After dinner, Chen Chu went upstairs on the pretext of practicing and continued to control the movement of the heavy armored beast. After swimming for more than an hour, we finally arrived at the mouth of the river dozens of miles away. The Tatao River was surging, and on the bank covered with weeds, a ferocious black head poked out of the water. Chen Chu controlled the clone and looked around. There were no buildings nearby. There was a road along the river on the embankment behind him. The street lights were sparse and there was no one at all. The lowest river bank in this area is several meters above the water surface, which is suitable for digging holes and building caves. The hexagonal salamander is amphibious. Although it can stay in the water for a long time, Chen Chu feels that it is safer to make a nest on the shore. Under Chen Chu's control, the heavily armored beast's claws landed on the mud and Shashisha dug out an underwater hole, then continued to expand and dig upward. Soon, a cave entrance was dark, several meters deep, and the inside was winding upwards. The deepest cave covering an area of 2 square meters was dug out. Then Chen Chu took out a small air intake hole above the hole. Call. In the room, Chen Chu exhaled and slowly opened his eyes. The outdoors is different from the one in the house. After the clone is released, Chen Chu needs to be distracted at all times to avoid accidentally causing the heavily armored beast to fart due to lack of reaction. By then, even if it has no impact on his body, he will still suffer heavy losses. After all, as long as the heavy armored beast continues to evolve, it will not only become a powerful combat power, but each evolution will also greatly improve its physical strength. Therefore, it was not until he dug a nest to hide that Chen Chu withdrew most of his attention and prepared to start tonight's training mission. But as soon as Chen Chu started practicing, he felt a difference. Under the circulation of qi and blood in his body that was more than twice as thick, the extraordinary energy floating around him was attracted one after another and was then introduced into the body for refining by mental power. Both the speed of qi and blood circulation and the amount of extraordinary energy absorbed are doubled as before. When combined, the overall cultivation speed is doubled. He felt that the first level of dragon elephant technique, which was originally expected to take 4 months to break through, could be broken through in just over 1 month of practice. This change surprised Chen Chu, and he started practicing harder. As qi and blood continued to circulate, refining the free energy between heaven and earth, the muscles and fascia of Chen Chu's whole body are continuously strengthened, becoming stronger with each circulation. Of course, this strengthening speed is very slow. In the morning, as soon as he went out, Chen Hu came to Chen Chu to compare, and then said in surprise, "Brother, have you grown taller again?" A month ago, Chen Chu was only 1.7 meters tall, which was shorter than the 13-year-old Chen Hu, who was 1.75 meters tall. As this period of time passed, as his physique continued to strengthen and practice, he was already as tall as Chen Hu before he knew it. And not only the height, but also the originally thin figure has become much stronger. This strength is not as powerful as Chen Hu, but very coordinated and well-proportioned. The slightly bulging muscles in the upper body hold up the shirt, the trousers on the lower body are straight, and the body is upright, looking very energetic and sunny. "You must have been growing recently," Chen Chu said casually. The two brothers walked towards the school. When they came to the intersection entering the city, a girl from the side also walked over and waved to Chen Chu after seeing him. The girl has a graceful figure with waterfall-like black hair tied behind her head with a white bow ribbon, and a pure and beautiful face. She is a beautiful scenery when she stands there. Chen Hu was a little surprised and said, "Brother, she seems to be greeting you." "Yes, my classmate." Chen Chu nodded and smiled at Luo Fei opposite him. At this time, the green light on the side lit up and Chen Chu walked over with Chen Hu. "It's rare to meet you, do you want to go together?" "Okay." Luo Fei nodded softly. Chen Hu leaned over and said, "Sister, you are so beautiful, just like a fairy in a costume TV series." "Sorry, this is my brother Chen Hu." Chen Chu was a little embarrassed. Luo Fei pursed her lips and smiled, "It's okay, your brother is very cute." As the three of them walked forward, Chen Hu caught up 2 steps and came to the other side of Luo Fei. He turned around and asked curiously, "Sister, do you have a good relationship with my brother?" Luo Fei paused. "It's okay, we are classmates." "Oh, I thought you and my brother were good friends." Chen Hu felt a little pity. "Friend, it should be considered. Right?" After speaking, Luo Fei looked at Chen Chu and blinked. Chen Chu smiled, of course. After all, the two of them have known each other for a long time. They had a good relationship when they were still practicing body casting skills, and their relationship has long been no different from friends. At this time, not far ahead, Chen Hu saw his little classmates and waved to Chen Chu, "Brother, beautiful sister, I'm leaving first." When turning around and running forward, Chen Hu winked at Chen Chu, as if to say, "Brother, I can only help you so much." Chen Chu was speechless. Chen Hu left, and Chen Chu and Luo Fei walked slowly toward the school side by side, casually exchanging their cultivation experiences on the way. When she entered the school, she met her classmate Li Wenwen. The girl's eyes widened as if she saw something surprising. In the classroom, as soon as Chen Chu sat down, Xia Yui in front of him turned around and came closer, but then he said softly, "Chu, why do I feel that you have become stronger?" Chen Chu glanced at him. "Why have you become stronger?" Xia Yui looked at him in confusion. "Strange, tell me honestly, did you use any cultivation resources after you went back yesterday? Do you think a poor person like me, who can't even afford the resources to replenish qi and blood when building a foundation, can afford cultivation resources?" Chen Chu was speechless. That seems to make sense, but... Xia Yui's face became more confused. He had only fought with Chen Chu 2 days ago, so he was more sensitive to the changes in Chen Chu's aura. As soon as Chen Chu sat down today, Xia Yui felt a faint threat from him. He was obviously the same person, but he felt an inexplicable sense of oppression when he sat there. But how could Chen Chu threaten him? He knew Chen Chu's talent very well. Although he had a calm mind and a promising future, Xia Yui obviously didn't believe it when he said he suddenly had an epiphany and surpassed him. They were only on the first level of heaven, still in the body refining range, and not on the sixth level of heaven, which was more focused on understanding. How could their strength suddenly soar? Did I feel wrong? Xia Yui scratched his head. Continue tomorrow. Chapter 33 Underwater Hunting. In the afternoon, there were only about a dozen people practicing in the huge training room. The geniuses Lin Shui, Yi Rui and others in the class have their own small groups and rent a club training room. While the students around him were practicing boxing, swords and other weapons, Chen Chu in the crowd held a knife behind his back and closed his eyes slightly. Chen Chu had never started cultivating the mind's eye before. Today, when he closed his breath and concentrated, a vague picture vaguely appeared in his mind. With a mental attribute of 55 points, which is equivalent to 5 or 6 times that of an ordinary person, the powerful mental power naturally spreads out, covering the surrounding area for several meters. Under normal circumstances, a cultivator's mental power will also improve later on, and he can release his spiritual will and sense everything around him. But when your mental power detects your opponent from a distance, others can also spot you immediately. Therefore, the creator of this exercise thought of finding another shortcut, tapping into the 5 senses of the human body and cultivating the mysterious 6th sense after exercising to the limit. When the time comes, as long as a malicious gaze falls on you, no matter how far away it is, it will be sensed immediately, and it can also be the last to arrive first in battle. With the formula in his mind, Chen Chu slowly focused his mental power on hearing, smelling, touching and other senses, and used the blade to stimulate these senses to infinitely amplify them. I don't know if it was due to the increase in strength or evolution, but soon, the hairs on Chen Chu's body felt the slight flow of air around him. These fluctuations come from the ripples of the air stirred by the bodies of those around them as they practice, as well as the sharp vibrations from the weapons tearing the air apart. As his mind fell silent, Chen Chu's mind was like a transparent mirror with ripples on it constantly fluctuating, forming some incomplete and blurry lines. This practice did not stop until noon. Chen Chu slowly opened his eyes, glanced at the classmates around him who had finished their work and were going to have lunch, and with a thought, he called up the properties page. Sure enough, in the notes behind the sword technique, the mind's eye finally got started. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Chen Chu's face. As long as he entered the mind eye state once and was included in the attribute page, he could slowly improve as long as he practiced hard. After everyone left, Chen Chu came to a strength tester and took a deep breath. I saw his figure sinking. The hot blood in his body circulated, and the muscles in his right arm and even his upper body expanded slightly, and a violent force surged out. Boom! Under Chen Chu's punch, the strength tester mounted on the wall shook with a bang. The numbers on it jumped wildly, and finally stopped at the number 1650. Nearly 6 times the strength attributes of ordinary people, Chen Chu's arm strength reaches 400 kilograms. Coupled with the substantive nature of the power after practicing the dragon elephant kung fu, the power doubled and a punch instantly exploded with a terrifying impact of more than 1,600 kilograms. This is just a pure burst of power. Next, Chen Chu went to the speed test area and did a test. The data was 24 meters per second. Although this speed was already very fast, Chen Chu was slightly stunned. According to the normal speed of an ordinary person, which is more than 6 meters per second, and his agility attribute is 5 times that of an ordinary person, shouldn't his speed be 30 meters per second? Or is it that speed and strength are different, and personal movement speed is affected by external gravity and air resistance and cannot be converted by simple multiples? In doubt, Chen Chu did some more tests. It was found that except for the fact that his movement speed was a little lower than what the data showed, his neurological reactions were 5 times that of ordinary people, and his body was flexible and coordinated. Obviously, the agility attribute not only refers to speed, but also includes physical coordination and neurological reactions. And to this point, he can slowly improve his physique and strength while practicing dragon elephant kung fu. It seems that the evolution of the clone has also raised his upper limit, unlike those students whose physique cannot be improved after reaching the limit of the first level. In the afternoon, after completing his daily practice, it was already 4 o'clock, but Chen Chu did not leave school, but went to the data room on the 33rd floor. After practicing every day, he would go to the top floor to look for books to read when he had time. These books could help him enrich his knowledge, and he would not be blind when he went out in the future. Under official control, this information cannot be found on the internet. When Chen Chu came to the reading area with 2 books, he saw the girl with black hair sitting by the window as usual, lowering her head slightly and reading quietly. When Chen Chu came and sat down opposite her, Luo Fei seemed to sense something and raised her head slightly. Seeing that it was him, the girl showed a faint smile on her pretty face, nodded to Chen Chu, and then continued to lower her head and read. Chen Chu also smiled back, lowered his head and opened the pages of the book to read. At this time, the sunshine outside the window was just right, falling on the two of them, bringing warmth and making the atmosphere a little lazy and leisurely. Bang! 10 meters deep, the water exploded under the surface of the river. A 75-centimeter-long alien beast suddenly rose from the bottom of the river and bit into the belly of the big fish swimming above. This is a snakehead fish that is 1.5 meters long, weighs dozens of kilograms, and has a mouth full of sharp teeth. Under attack, it twisted its body crazily and burst out with great strength in an attempt to break free. At this moment, a sharp claw struck it on the head with astonishing force. Click! The skull of this snake-headed black fish was shattered by a slap from the heavily armored beast. After killing the black fish that was twice as long as itself, the heavily armored beast began to eat. Its sharp teeth and strong bite force allowed it to easily tear apart the food. However, the heavily armored beast has human consciousness and is very picky. It only eats meat and is not interested in the internal organs. As soon as these scattered internal organs slowly sank, they were swarmed by some finger-sized fish swimming around and tore them apart crazily. The big fish eat and the small fish pick up the leftovers. This is the underwater ecology of the river. Soon, a black fish weighing nearly 100 kilograms was swallowed up. The terrifying digestive ability transformed the food, and the body of the heavily armored beast expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. After growing up, the heavily armored beast looks thicker and more ferocious. Gulu-gulu. Breathing out a string of bubbles, the heavily armored beast flicked its tail to find the next target. But at this moment, a dark shadow flashed across the depths of the turbid waters. Bang! A powerful impact came from the belly of the heavily armored beast, knocking it several meters away, and its heavy body rolled continuously in the water. Just as the heavily armored beast adjusted its body, the creature that attacked it burst out again at an alarming speed. This time the target was the heavily armored beast's head. Only then did Chen Chu see the attacker clearly. It was a large fish more than 2 meters long with gray scales all over its body and looked like a sturgeon. But that ferocious mouth full of sharp teeth that can almost bite off a person's thigh in one bite is much more ferocious than a sturgeon. This fish was so fast that it appeared in front of the heavily armored beast in almost the blink of an eye, and then, with a muffled sound of bang, the mutated sturgeon was whipped in the mouth by the heavily armored beast's tail, and its body was directly knocked over by the terrifying force. The two sides were obviously 3 times different in size, but it was knocked over, which made the mutated sturgeon with low intelligence a little confused. At this moment, the heavily armored beast had already pounced on it, its claws stretched out and grabbed hard on both sides of the mutated sturgeon's body, its sharp claws tearing apart the scales. Injured, the mutated sturgeon swam wildly, trying to throw the heavily armored beast off its body, but was unable to break free, and the heavily armored beast also opened its mouth wide. Click! Under the terrifying bite force of the heavily armored beast, the mutated sturgeon's back was directly bitten off and its body suddenly stiffened, losing resistance and becoming food. In this kind of water where there are no powerful mutant beasts, the heavily armored beasts with terrifying power and amazing defense have almost no natural enemies. Chapter 34 Terrible Defense. Chen Chu. Chen Chu. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, Luo Fei looked at Chen Chu, who was distracted in front of her and couldn't help but call out twice. Ah! What's wrong? Chen Chu recovered part of his mind. Luo Fei tucks the hair hanging from her forehead behind her ears, points to the clock on the wall and whispers, "It's already 6 o'clock, I have to go back, do you want to go together?" It's already 6 o'clock, and the time flies by so fast. Chen Chu nodded with emotion. Okay. The two stood up, put the borrowed books back to their original places and walked out of the building. During this time, most of the students who were immersed in cultivation also returned home one after another, walking out in 2s and 3s, discussing the ranking competition in the next few days. The sun was setting in the west, and the sunshine had lost the heat of the afternoon. A breeze blew through the girl's hair, bringing a faint scent of shampoo. Chen Chu turned his head, looked at that beautiful side face, and asked casually, "Luo Fei, do you want to participate in the competition next Monday?" Luo Fei shook her head. "My skills are special and I don't have much fighting power in the early stage, so I don't plan to participate. He always heard her say that the skills she practiced were special. Chen Chu couldn't help but wonder, what skills did you practice? You didn't have much combat power in the early stage. The girl just pursed her lips slightly and showed a faint smile. This question is kept secret. You will know it after the second grade trial. Chen Chu was helpless. Okay. As for you, you should be participating in this ranking competition. Luo Fei asked back. Yes, I want to participate. Chen Chu nodded. I feel that I have made a breakthrough in my cultivation in the past few days, so I am preparing to participate in the ranking competition to compete with those classmates and accumulate combat experience. Luo Fei didn't think much about this reason. In her opinion, Chen Chu and she were practicing low-level skills and their initial talents were average among this batch of freshmen, so they were just joining in the ranking competition to join in the fun. After all, there are more than 100 ordinary geniuses in front of them who have built a foundation within a week and practiced advanced techniques. Whether it is talent or the level of skills he has practiced, there is a big gap between Chen Chu and those people, and there is no chance of entering the 50th place. On the next road, the two of them walked and chatted like ordinary friends. It's just that Luo Fei noticed that Chen Chu would occasionally lose focus while talking. It should be because he practiced too hard during this period and didn't get a good rest. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but appreciate it. Talent is almost nothing, but as long as you are willing to practice hard and accumulate step by step, you will one day reach heights that ordinary people cannot imagine. The next day, Friday, the end-of-month exams began for the first year of high school. Many students looked bitter as they held the papers. There is no way, they have been focusing on cultivation during this period. Who has the time to read and study? The exam was over in a hurry and I didn't have to go to school the next day on Saturday. Chen Chu did not go to school to practice as usual, but came to the bustling commercial street, preparing to practice in a noisy environment. Today, he was wearing a white t-shirt, gray trousers and white flat shoes. His clothes were simple and casual. Coupled with his tall and straight figure, delicate and handsome facial features and clean face, as soon as he found a chair under the shade of a tree to sit down, many people looked over. Especially those girls who are wearing cool clothes. When passing by this sunny and handsome boy, they will stop intentionally or unintentionally, pretending to look at the surrounding shops. It's a pity that although some of these beauties are quite beautiful and have sexy figures. But after the boy sat down, he closed his eyes and meditated. He couldn't see the scenery at all. Some girls who wanted to strike up a conversation also stopped when they saw this. Without being disturbed by the outside world, as soon as Chen Chu closed his eyes and concentrated, he once again entered a special state constructed by his keen five senses. The keen hearing filters out useless noise, the sense of smell distinguishes people and objects around you, and the tactile hairs all over the body sense the flow of air in space. After slowly becoming familiar with this state, Chen Chu separated part of his mind. Over the past month, he has been practicing distraction. Although he is still not able to control the two bodies completely freely, he can already devote part of his attention to controlling the heavily armored beast while the main body is doing things. The water surface of the turbulent river is hundreds of meters wide, and the deepest point is more than 40 meters. It breeds countless aquatic creatures, and many large fish have slightly mutated under the influence of the environment. The water on the river bank was turbid. An 80-centimeter-long creature with thick limbs and heavy armor crawled out of the hole and swam toward the deep water. It had only been 2 days since it was released, but due to the abundance of food, the heavily armored clone had already grown 10 centimeters, became larger, had stronger defense, and had more exaggerated power. At the same time, the evolution value also increases at a rate of 5 points per day, and the growth rate is much faster than in the past. Of course, this is inseparable from Chen Chu's diligence in controlling the heavy armored beast to eat. Whenever he has time every day, including getting up in the middle of the night to eat. Soon, Chen Chu controlled the heavily armored beast to a deep water area of more than 20 meters. The vision here was turbid and he could only vaguely see a range of 5 or 6 meters. Before swimming too far, a huge figure appeared in the sight of the heavily armored beast. It was a 3-meter-long fish with a long crocodile mouth, thick scales all over its body, and bone spurs growing out of its back, making it ferocious and ferocious. Judging from the appearance, this should be a ferocious fish mutated into an alligator gar. When the heavily armored beast discovered it, it also noticed this little guy of average size, and immediately rushed over with a swish of its tail, preparing for a tooth-slapping ceremony. For a mutated crocodile gar that is more than 3 meters long and as thick as a human body, the 80-centimeter long heavily armored beast is nothing short of a little guy and can be broken in one bite. The heavily armored beast calmly looked at the mutant crocodile gar that shot towards it and watched indifferently as its wide-open crocodile mouth tore through the water flow, creating a string of splashes. Bang! When the heavily armored beast did not dodge, the mutated crocodile gar's big mouth bit hard on its belly and back, and a tearing force burst out under the powerful kinetic energy. In the past, the crocodile, bird, and beast used high-speed impact, using kinetic energy and sharp teeth to tear their prey into two pieces, but today, it was like biting into alloy steel. The mutated crocodile gar's sharp teeth broke off directly, gurgling. Under the pain of eating, the mutated crocodile becomes even more violent. The huge bite force bit the heavily armored beast tightly, and its huge body twisted wildly in the water, trying to tear the hard prey in its mouth into pieces. But the mutated crocodile was allowed to wait until it was exhausted, and the heavily armored beast in its mouth remained unscathed. Even on the abdomen, which has a weaker outer armor compared to the back, there are only a few white marks. This is the terrible defensive talent. It seems that the crocodile bird bites the back and abdomen of the heavily armored beast. In fact, when it bites with explosive force, all the power is spread throughout the body by the integrated exoskeleton structure. Coupled with the internal structure like a 1,000-layer cake, it can weaken the heavy pressure on the body layer by layer, and the strength of the outer armor increases as the body grows. Together, these create a heavily armored beast with terrifying defenses. After being unable to tear it apart for a long time, the exhausted crocodile bird had to let go of the heavy armored beast. At this moment, the heavily armored beast, which had tested its defense, swung its tail, its muscles exploded as its body turned, and a claw fell hard on its head. Bang! The water exploded under the heavy blow, and the mutated crocodile gar's head collapsed directly. Blood mixed with white matter spurted out, and it was hammered to death by the heavily armored beast's claws. Killing the mutant fish, the heavily armored beast took a big bite, tore off a large piece of flesh from the mutant crocodile gar's back and devoured it. Blood foam spilled out while chewing, which was very cruel. Chapter 35 Synchronous Strengthening. It actually has no effect. In the pedestrian street, Chen Chu, who had been sitting all afternoon, slowly opened his eyes with a hint of disappointment on his face. I thought that being in a noisy place like a pedestrian street would be helpful for practicing the realm of mind and eye, and would be more in line with the state of the practice. I didn't expect that the progress would be similar to yesterday. It seems that he is overthinking. Thoughtfully, Chen Chu stood up and left. I sat there all afternoon, basking in the sun and cultivating my mind. Some beautiful women came over to strike up a conversation along the way. However, Chen Chu was in a state of cultivation at that time, and half of his consciousness was transforming into strange beasts to hunt and fight, so he had no interest in talking to them. How could a woman have any fun hunting all kinds of mutated fish in the depths of a river? The next day, Sunday, Chen Chu did not go to the pedestrian street or school. In the sunshine, he sat cross-legged on the wooden corridor in the backyard. While he was practicing the dragon elephant skill hard, part of his mind was on the heavily armored beast. Under the water more than 10 meters deep, the heavily armored beast had just killed an ordinary mutated fish that was more than 3 meters long and was eating a big meal. After these days of wreaking havoc, the heavily armored beast has become the overlord of several kilometers of water, and none of the mutant fish it has targeted can escape. At the same time, he ate and drank a lot, and his body became bigger and thicker. Suddenly Chen Chu stopped practicing and opened his eyes. Just now, he felt a subtle warm current in his body. This feeling was very similar to when the clone evolved. Could it be? Chen Chu thought and called up the properties page. I saw that the 4 major attributes had unconsciously increased by 2 points in the past 2 days, and the highest strength attribute reached 63. My major attributes are slowly increasing. Chen Chu was a little surprised, and then an incredible guess emerged in his mind. Synchronous reinforcement. As the heavily armored beast clone grows, his body will also be affected and become stronger. As for why it was not discovered before, it was because the previous hexagonal salamander was too weak. It was so weak that it had no effect on Chen Chu, who practiced Zhenwu as he grew older. It wasn't until after the second evolution that the size of the heavily armored beast exceeded a certain limit, and it had an impact on Chen Chu, whose physique had reached 60. Thinking of this possibility, Chen Chu's breathing became rapid. If it is true as he suspected, Then when the clone grows to 1,000 meters, 10,000 meters, or even 1,000,000 meters, how terrifying will it be when his body is simultaneously strengthened? Explode the planet with one punch? Chen Chu was a little excited. It seems that we need to devote more energy to cultivating clones in the future. Compared with the slow improvement of Zhenwu, the growth rate of the heavy armored beast is much exaggerated. It is not obvious now at less than 1 meter, but it will be terrifying after evolving a few times. Especially when it enters the deep sea and grows to hundreds of kilometers. On Monday, due to the freshman ranking competition, Nanchen Wugao was very lively. Nearly 2,000 freshmen flocked to the sports center in the training area. It was a stadium built specifically for the event, large enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. At this time, the school news of Nanchen Wugao was being played on the 4 large screens on the ceiling of the gymnasium, and the surrounding stands were filled with freshmen who had not yet established their foundation. On the ground below, which is equivalent to 4 football fields, there are 50 arenas 6 meters long and 6 meters wide. Each arena is divided into 4 rows from 1 to 50. Because it is not an average, the 2 arenas number 1 and 2 stand out. At this time, at the south entrance of the stadium, freshmen carrying weapons were lining up in 10 rows to register in front of 10 independent registration machines. Everyone's face was full of excitement, apprehension, nervousness and other emotions. When the new students were signing up at the top of the auditorium, several senior students not wearing school uniforms crossed their arms, and one of them said uninterested, "Chen Hong, why did you call us here?" The long-haired young man lying on the railing said with a smile, "What else can we do? Of course we can watch the game together." Someone said disdainfully, "A group of first-level rookies who have just established their foundations, what's so interesting about this kind of competition?" Zhang Yao is right. These people haven't even developed their true strength yet. They fight like children playing house. I don't know why the school wants to hold this competition. A senior student said enviously, "Yes, I heard that as long as you rank in the top 50, you will get an extra 5 contribution points every month, which is as easy as picking up for free. You must know that these second-year students only contribute 10 points a month during their schooling. If they want to contribute more points, they need to complete tasks. As long as these new students can enter the top 50, plus their own monthly payment, they will be almost the same as them." The young man lying on the railing shook his head. Don't underestimate this round of new students. It's only been a month since school started, and there are already people who have broken through to the second world. Chen Hong, are you talking about the freshman named in Fuking? He broke through to the second level in half a month. His talent is no less than that of the pervert Ji Changkeng. The long-haired young man smiled bitterly. It's not just her, there are several powerful characters in this freshman class, and one of them has a perfect fit with the technique. What, a perfect fit? How can it be? The news surprised the senior students. The long-haired young man shrugged. Don't look at me like that, you guys. I also heard what Mr. Chin said, so I shouldn't be wrong. Although that new student has not yet broken through to the second level of heaven, he is born with divine power. In addition, he is practicing the advanced technique Ox Demon Shakes the Mountain, so his power is extremely terrifying. Perverted. A senior student swallowed. Innate divine power, coupled with advanced techniques that enhance strength in themselves, with perfect fit, the power will reach a very terrifying level. It seems that this freshman class is really not something to be overlooked. Several other senior students looked serious. There was a queue over there, and Chen Chu, who was carrying a long knife, quickly completed the registration. "Achu, this way." As soon as Chen Chu squeezed out of the crowd, Xia Yui in the distance waved and called him. There were other students from Class 3 around him, and these people were vaguely divided into 3 camps. One of the camps was headed by squad leader Lin Shui, surrounded by Xia Yui, Lu Heidao and Li Wenwen. On the other side was a small group headed by Yi Rui, followed by several other students who had not joined their small group. Looking at Chen Chu walking over, Xia Yui chuckled and said, "Achu, if you are unlucky enough to meet me later, I won't hold back this time." As he spoke, he patted a thick shield on his back that was taller than a man. The shield was 10 centimeters thick and covered with awls. It was clearly his weapon. Such a thick heavy shield weighs over 100 kilograms even though the weight of the alloy is much lighter than ordinary steel. It is truly a heavy weapon. Chen Chu smiled slightly. "If you meet me, just attack with all your strength. My goal this time is to participate and accumulate practical experience. It doesn't matter whether I win or lose." Lin Shui nodded after hearing this. "Yes, this is just an ordinary competition. Everyone's strength is average. It is mainly about exchanges and exchanges. Don't pay too much attention to the outcome. The monitor is right. Chen Chu nodded modestly. Chapter 36 Concession. Chen Chu looked around and saw that they were all densely packed with human heads. These students are similar to them. They gather together in classes and are divided into more than 40 camps. The number of participants is expected to be around 500. This was the first time that Chen Chu saw so many new students practicing Zhenwu. They were all unfamiliar faces, because usually everyone practiced in 2 buildings. In addition, those freshmen who had just established the foundation for a few days chose to give up, otherwise there would be more people. Quiet. As the announcement rang, the whole place fell silent. Following the sound, I saw more than 10 teachers sitting on the main stage in the distance, including Chen Qi and Pang Long. Among the teachers, a middle-aged man with a beard took the microphone and said solemnly, "I am Lin Ziying, the head teacher of Class 1, and I and all the teachers present are the referee today. Cultivation is a very boring thing, especially for you freshmen. Many of you slowly become lazy after the initial novelty. Therefore, the official organized this competition to make you realize the gap between yourself and your peers, so that you can learn your shame and be brave, and work harder to practice. You have no idea how much the country has paid to train you. Don't take these things for granted. You must know that every resource you use was obtained by other soldiers who fought hard on the battlefield. At the same time, every skill is created by the creator with all their efforts. This is how the initial permissions are divided, because waste is not qualified to enjoy these. Of course, this waste does not refer to those students who are slow to build their foundation, but to those who are negligent, lazy, and unwilling to make progress after getting the opportunity to practice. This kind of people will be slowly eliminated by the school in the next 3 years. Lin Ziying said in a deep voice. Having said that, I will say a few more words. Currently on the internet, there are rumors that people who cannot build a foundation in a month have no talent for cultivation, or that people who only take a month to build a foundation have inferior talents. These are bullshit in my opinion. Foundation building is just the beginning, so what if it goes slower? You must know that cultivation is a path of continuous self-evolution and self-breaking of limits. In the later stage, every breakthrough in realm will be calculated in 10 or 20 years. Every major realm breakthrough is a sublimation, a transformation of life levels. How can it be compared to the 1 or 2 months that were slow in building the foundation at the beginning? Everyone reminds me that cultivation is a long and arduous road, and only those with perseverance can make it to the end. The speed at the beginning is just a stumbling block encountered along the way. It can be broken with a little effort. If you can't bear even this little bit of hardship, no matter whether you are cultivating or entering other industries, you will still be inactive in this life. The words of the class teacher named Lin Ziying made many students who had established their foundation within a month excited. Including some freshmen in the audience who had originally given up, their faith in cultivation once again surged in their hearts. Yes, they are just half a month late, why can't they practice? Okay, it's almost time, let me tell you the rules of the game. This competition is divided into 3 rounds. In the first round, everyone will fight 6 opponents in a row. Each round is 10 minutes. A win will add 1 point, and a loss will minus 1 point. If there is no winner within 10 minutes, the referee teacher will decide the winner based on the fighting performance. After the first round, the top 200 with the highest points advance. The second round is divided into defense battles. Everyone only needs to defeat 4 people in a row on the ring to be successful in the defense, and everyone only has 1 chance to challenge. After the top 50 are determined, the third round of free challenge will begin. Those who are not satisfied with their current ranking in the arena can challenge the top 10. The winners will continue, the losers will remain unchanged. By the way, although the top 50 are in different positions, the contribution points awarded each month are the same. Okay, now the game starts. Everyone starts the first round based on the names that appear after the ring number on the big screen. I am on stage 13. My number 9 arena. I am number 45. I'm in the second ring. Hey, squad leader, Chu, I'll go up first. As he said that, Xia Yui ran excitedly to the distant second ring. Then Chen Chu also saw his name on the 49th stage. After saying hello to Lin Shui and the others, Chen Chu also trotted over. There was already a girl standing on the ring. She looked ordinary. When she saw Chen Chu who jumped up, she said politely, "Classmate, how about we have a simple spar without using weapons?" Okay. Chen Chu nodded and placed the knife beside the ring. Attention on stage 49, the competition will officially start in 3 seconds. As the electronic announcement sounded, Chen Chu and the girl both looked solemn and thought silently in their hearts for 3 seconds. The girl opposite suddenly shouted, "Be careful." After the voice fell, the girl burst out with an astonishing speed, even faster than Lu Heidao. It was obvious that the skills she majored in were related to speed. But, boom! Chen Chu used his left arm to stop the girl from turning around and kicking her high. His arm did not move at all, ignoring the girl's explosive power of hundreds of kilograms. The moment she was stopped, the girl twisted her body and used her strength to kick 3 times in the air. The speed was as fast as lightning, and her feet did not leave Chen Chu's head, neck and other weak points. But they were all easily blocked by Chen Chu, who reacted faster. And at the moment when the girl's third kick gave out, Chen Chu moved suddenly while she was retreating in midair, and grabbed her ankle with one arm like an elephant's trunk. Ah! The girl in mid-air was startled. Immediately afterwards, he felt a huge force coming, and his whole body was thrown more than 10 meters away by Chen Chu, and fell under the ring with a bang. The girl falling from the sky startled several classmates around her. Looking at the girl who was sitting on the ground in a daze, unable to stand up due to pain in her butt, Chen Chu smiled slightly. "I accept. This girl is a little stronger than Lu Heidao and is equally good at legwork and speed." But it was a pity that he met Chen Chu, who exceeded the limit of the first level in terms of speed, strength, reaction and other aspects, and was directly crushed and killed instantly. The referee's teacher's voice came from the arena loudspeaker in arena number 49, student Chen Chu wins. The next round will start after an 8-minute break. Chen Chu raised his head, looked at the camera on the pillar, and said with a smile, "Teacher, I think we can start the next game directly without taking a break." It's not that Chen Chu is showing off, it's mainly that the girl just now was too weak and there was no need to rest and waste time. Okay. The teacher on the podium paused slightly. Immediately, not far away, a powerful young man carrying a heavy hammer weapon ran over excitedly and jumped onto the 49th ring.